Oh boy, ladies and gentlemen, we have massive news for the stock market, and unfortunately, it doesn't sound great. In terms of the conflict going on in the Middle East, it's a shit show over there, okay? And it looks like America is probably going to be taking action against Iran, some point this weekend or maybe early next week. Ladies and gentlemen, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. And again, if you guys want to come trade with us, come check out that trading community, link down below in the description of this video. We're putting in the work. We're finding those hidden gems. I mean, it's crazy what is out there and some of the prices and valuations some stocks are trading at just because they're not well known by markets. They're smaller companies. Like, I'm shocked. So I've recently made a lot of investments in these hidden gems. And I think over the next couple of months, there's going to be some pretty crazy returns there. Nonetheless, check it out if you guys would like to. I'm not a financial advisor. Keep that in mind. You need to do your own due diligence if you feel the need to, and contact a financial advisor if you have questions. But with that, let's get started. So a senior Iranian official says Iran welcomes diplomacy, but not under the shadow of war. That sounds great, but then this Iranian official states that European proposals were unrealistic. Senior Iranian officials say that Iran will not negotiate over its defensive capabilities, including its missile program. And the senior Iranian official says zero enrichment is also practically a dead end. So, yeah. It's only a matter of time before we strike Iran, from what it sounds like. It sounded like to me this meeting in Europe, in Geneva, with Iranian officials, U.S. envoy Witkoff, and other European officials, was the last stand for Iran to, really put forth something good to get a deal done. And unless they did, then, Trump was going to authorize that strike. Khamenei, I don't know how to say his name exactly. The Iranian president, or supreme leader, picks his potential successors in case of assassination. So he's accepted, like, America's going to get involved in this, right? Following the talks in Europe that went nowhere. And the U.S. State Department urges citizens not to travel to Iraq for any reason. Yeah, I don't know why anyone would go to Iraq. That's a red flag in and of itself. Here's another breaking news headline. It says the EU sees the U.S. pushing for unbalanced concessions in trade talks. Now, B-2 stealth bombers appear to be on the move hours before Trump is expected at the White House. Yemen's Houthis say they will target U.S. ships in the Red Sea if the U.S. gets involved in Israeli attacks on Iran. Iran's foreign minister may travel to Moscow on Monday to meet Russian President Putin. It says the U.S. military is moving B-2 bombers to the Pacific island of Guam from the mainland U.S., according to 2 U.S. officials. So, yeah, it looks like at any moment you're going to be getting some kind of attack on Iran. Probably later today or tomorrow. And that's not going to be great for maybe energy prices. Like, Wall Street's not going to care if the U.S. is actually involved, but energy prices is key. Now, JP Morgan did some interesting research, okay, that says there have been 8 cases of regime change in major oil-producing countries since 1979, according to JP Morgan. So that means, like, the leader gets killed, a new regime takes over, okay? It says oil prices spiked 76% on average at their peak in the wake of these changes before pulling back to stabilize at a price about 30% higher compared to pre-crisis levels, according to the bank. Yeah. If oil goes up 76%, markets are at least gonna fall probably 7%, 7 to 10% or so, maybe more than that, because I mean that risks an economic recession in the U.S. Like, again, Wall Street doesn't care who's bombing who's dying out there. Like, Wall Street doesn't care about that. Wall Street cares about energy prices, earnings, the economy, and oil touches everything. It affects everyone. There's no workaround to that. It's the biggest industry in the world by far. Oil, transportation, the effect it has on the economy is unmatched. Okay, so we'll see what happens. It's fair to say nothing has happened yet, but it does sound like time has run out. Ultimately, I do think maybe like in modern times, you probably don't get a 76% spike in oil. That sounds pretty aggressive. I think the Strait of Hormuz would have to be threatened or actually cut off. Then you'd see maybe even a larger spike than that, right? But I'm actually still optimistic that markets can do fine during this conflict as long as the Strait of Hormuz does not get choked off. Even if Iran's leader is assassinated, I don't think that means you have to see a 70+% spike in energy. For next week, just to give you a little bit of a brief rundown of the economic data that we're going to have, you have the S&P Global Composite PMI flash numbers for June, existing home sales, a speech from Fed Bowman, Fed Goolsbee, and Fed Kugler Monday. What's going to be interesting is how Fed officials kind of talk about the last Fed meeting. The Fed is incompetent. They are compromised. Fed Waller is the only one at this point that seems like he understands what he's doing, that is not compromised or incompetent. Okay, the Fed should be cutting rates right now. We all know that. Like, the Fed's incompetent or compromised or both. Okay, so how many Fed officials, come out and are worried about inflation versus how many of them come out and take a little bit more bullish of a stance? That's going to be important to see. And maybe we start to get some divergences. Maybe Wall Street starts to care more about some of these speeches from Fed officials, in which we really haven't cared about speeches or comments from Fed officials for a long time. On Tuesday, Fed Jerome Powell will be testifying, some regional Fed data as well. On Wednesday, you get Fed Chair Powell that speaks again, so both Tuesday and Wednesday. Thursday, durable goods orders month over month, GDP growth rate quarter over quarter, final numbers for Q1, expecting a final number of negative 0.2%, retail inventories and initial jobless claims, some other smaller data sets as well. Bunch of Fed speakers, bunch of bond auctions. Thursday is going to be a pretty eventful day. And then Friday, core PCE month over month, personal income month over month, personal spending month over month. Core PCE month over month is expected at a whopping 0.1%. Again, this is why the Fed should be cutting rates, because you haven't seen inflation for almost 3 months now at all. Now, again, I just want to be very clear. Conflict in the Middle East with Iran, even though the markets are going to react to it, it's not something you should react to. Okay, I know, scary, right? Especially if energy were to see some kind of big spike. It's typically not something you want to react to. Tends to, oil price shocks tend to be very short-lived. The question is, is it enough to cause recessionary dynamics? Well, maybe. Would it be enough to get the Fed to cut rates? The Fed is compromised, so probably not. So I think the recession risk is probably a lot stronger than maybe if this were to happen with a different Fed. Okay, a different Fed would not be as compromised. They would be more competent and cut rates even as oil went up. Nonetheless, I don't think we're going to have a recession. I don't even think we're going to have a large oil shock either. I think like maybe we could get a 20% rally in oil if Iran's leader is killed, if we get involved in that war. But I don't see like a 70% rally in oil. That's pretty damn dramatic. Even if we do, conflict is a short-lived thing in markets. It doesn't tend to, last a long time or anything like that. And it's not something you want to personally, trade in and out of long-term positions around. Now, there's definitely an opportunity to maybe hedge a little bit if we start to get clear indications that the U.S. is going to strike Iran. It might happen over this weekend. That's what it's sounding like. But if it doesn't happen over this weekend, then maybe a hedge or two could make some sense. But I'm not even really interested in that. I think after the whole Middle East, situation is over with, markets are going to rally pretty aggressively. I'm still with that view that into year-end markets are going to rally aggressively. 2026 is going to be a much better year than 2025. Why? Trade deals should be done. Okay. Clarity on the tax bill, clarity on trade deals. Inflation is dead at this point. Okay. I think the economy's going to do quite well, especially if the tax bill does pass. We're going to get a new Fed in March, I believe, of 2026. Might be March, April, somewhere around there. And we're going to get a lot of cuts next year. We're going to have this focus on AI. We're in an AI Cold War. That is not going away anytime soon. It's going to drive massive growth and value creation for equity investors specifically. I mean, that's the bull thesis. If something changes, then obviously we'll have to incorporate that change. But I don't see the U.S. economy going into recession. I don't see inflation being an issue. I don't see rolling into 2026 with trade deal fiascos that are still going on. I think trade deals are going to be settled by then. Tax bill, debt limit, all that's going to be settled by then. Like, there's a very strong case for 2026 is going to be a really good year. Now, as we get into the later part of this year, over the next couple of months, Wall Street's going to start pricing in what 2026 is going to look like. If it's going to be expected to be a good or bad year, I think it's going to be a really good year. And I think a lot of other folks on Wall Street are also going to believe 2026 is going to be a good year. So if you believe 2026 is going to be a good year, well, by the end of this year, you're going to be buying stocks, positioning your portfolio for it to take advantage of it, right? Hopefully that makes some sense. Markets are forward looking. They're not backwards looking. So even if 2025 is a shit year, by the end of 2025, nobody's going to care about that. Nobody's going to care about the year was shit. They're going to care about what 2026 is going to look like. So if we rally into November, December this year, it's because people are expecting a good 2026. And that's my thought. So maybe there's a little bit more volatility and turbulence over the next, month or two, maybe 3 months. But I do think you start to roll around to September, October, November, December. That's where things should start to look a little bit better. And I know there's some seasonal weakness there around October, a little bit in the second half of September as well. Nonetheless, that's my kind of thought here. Don't panic. Don't freak out, no matter what happens. If you're obviously balls to the walls in margin, you're going to want to deposit more money or probably reduce some of that margin exposure. Okay, either or. Let me know your thoughts on this down below in the comment section. Ladies and gentlemen, if you guys want to come trade with us, check out that link down below in the description of this video. I made an investment, kind of like a trade, but it's going to be a longer term investment, you could say, in a company that is less than $5 a share, less than a $350 million market cap, that is days away from getting a fast-tracked FDA approval process on DMD. That is muscular dystrophy. Okay, maybe this one hits home a little bit more because when I was in middle school, my teacher had muscular dystrophy and was in the wheelchair thing with a little hand remote. But Sarepta. Sarepta was the company. Let me just show you this. Sarepta is the company that has a gene editing therapy that is approved, okay, for use. 900 people have taken it, but 2 have died. Look at what has happened to the stock since even the beginning of this year. The stock went from $120, $130 a share down to 20. And what has happened with the other one that I invested in? Well, it's up like 80% in the same time frame. But it's only a $5 stock. It's a micro cap name. And they had really good data come out. They only have 10 patients that have taken their version of this competing drug, okay? But it looks really good, okay? The data looks really good. It's just a microcap stock, so nobody pays attention to it, right? They don't even know about it. It's not even on the radar. Like if you go to StockTwits, which I like to do, and just check, see where the activity is. In this stock, this competitor to Sarepta, there's like 1 or 2 messages a day. Like nobody is talking about it. And when they get that FDA fast track approval, which should be coming anytime now, yeah, the stock's probably gonna triple to 5x overnight. Yeah, and then everyone's gonna pay attention to it. So, little Easter egg for you guys. I'm sure you can figure out what the stock is. But if you guys want to come trade with us, get access to all of my research and due diligence on, I mean, I've made probably 5 different investments in different hidden gem stocks in the last like week or so. Check out the link down below in the description of this video. You guys have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the next one.